Does anyone even logic?
One of the things you're famous for saying is that you found it difficult to debate with certain types of women because the normal things you would have recourse to if you were debating men are not available to you. And what you meant there was you couldn't hit her.
No, I didn't mean that.
You didn't mean that? You meant,
well,
what did you,
I
tell me what you meant.
I didn't mean that at all.
Tell me
I
what
meant
you
that
meant.
it's known among men that there are limits to the manner in which you can interact, and that those limits don't necessarily apply when you're dealing with women, especially women of a certain sort, and there's no way of regulating that, and that's a big problem. That's what I meant, and I think that it's true.
It's obvious a lot of women were surprised to hear that, and
happy as well.
I would have thought a lot of men were surprised to hear that, because my experience is that men don't generally engage in their interactions on the basis of suppressing their anger, which is what you're really getting at.
They don't
engage in their interactions on the basis of, I've got to moderate.
No, they regulate their behavior so that that anger isn't necessary.
Yes. Why you strike me as angry, and I wonder why you're angry.
I guess I'm not sure why I strike you as angry.
You don't feel angry?
At the moment? Not particularly.
Well, okay, generally?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, most of the places that I go, look, I can tell you what my life is like. You can tell me if you think this would be a life that would make you angry. Okay, everywhere I go, I'm stopped by people, at least a dozen times a day. I would say 5 times an hour. They're often young men, but not always. Almost all of them are exceptionally polite when they approach me. They'd like to have a picture, they'd like to talk to me, and they'd like to tell me why their life is substantially better since they've encountered my work. And I've gone to, I don't know, a dozen countries, maybe more, 15 countries, and talked to at least 10,000 people who've told me that story over and over. And so you imagine what your life would be like if everywhere you went, what people did was come up to you and thank you because what they did helped you not commit suicide and get out of your addiction and stop being alcoholic and take responsibility for your life and try to put your family together, and that things are much, much better, and that they're often in tears. It's not something that makes you angry. It's something that makes you hurt.
It's not making you angry now?
It's hurt. It's hurtful to see how much need there is for that in society, and how unfortunate it is that people need such a small amount of encouragement to lift themselves out of those sorts of places of hell. And it is irritating to me, I would say, that men in particular, young men, have been discouraged to the point where that's such a common occurrence, when they need so little encouragement to move forward in a productive and progressive direction.
I accept that. What surprises me is that the context of it is a context in which the me is stressed, and the more traditional questions of how you fit in, how you cope with an evolving society, rather than being able to encouraging people to stand back and go, actually, the way society is evolving is wrong, and we can step back from it and we can stop it. It seems to me there's a nostalgia that you're offering people there.
You insist upon this idea that the me's at the center of this. So I talked to a young man a month ago who had stopped his heroin addiction about a year ago, and it was as a consequence of watching my lectures. And he said he's had 12 of his friends do the same thing. And I insist continually that if you're treating yourself properly, you're doing it in a way that also benefits your family and also benefits the community. There's a strong communitarian ethos in there, and it has nothing to do with what would you call it, a focused individualism.
Got him!
We had that series of statements from you. Speaking clearly is one of your 12 rules. And I wonder why it is that in a situation like that and in many other situations, what actually happens is that you sow confusion.
I don't sow confusion. The journalists that interview me sow confusion.
Well,
the woman who wrote the New York Times article.
That you get misinterpreted in your views so often?
With her it was absolutely clear. I spent 2 days with her and we spent 30 seconds talking about enforced monogamy, and she's a very smart woman and she knew exactly what I meant and chose to make that the centerpiece of the article for I would say, to attract attention in a way that was completely inappropriate.
But you know it's not just the journalists from the New York Times. You know that this happens over and over and over.
That's because the journalists read each other's journalism, and they don't read the books, and they don't watch what I'm saying.
Never with you. The fault is...
Well, no, the fault is sometimes with me. I mean, it's not like I always say everything perfectly. But there's no, it's getting dull to read the journalistic accounts because they're just mirror images of everything that's been written over the last year and a half. And the same old things. There's 10 epithets that are generally thrown at me, every one that you can possibly think of. And people have gone over everything I've said to my students for the last 30 years, almost all of which is recorded, and found absolutely no evidence for any of that, even once.
I would say that there is a lot online of journalists actually trying to interview seriously, trying to get towards a proper understanding. And that, what you just said to me, is a very common thing you say. I've been over the evidence, there is no evidence anywhere.
It isn't just me that's been over the evidence, it's people that have been trying to take me out who've been over the evidence and have not been able to find any.
Last year you said, asked what you would say to Justin Trudeau, your Prime Minister, and you said, you thought for a while and you said, dividing people into their tribal groups can do nothing but bear evil fruit in the long run. And I wonder if that isn't a very good example of the assumption that the world was properly organised before, when really it's always been in tribes, always been in classes and in gender groups and in races, and the organisation of the world in that way has always borne evil fruit. And I wonder, in addition to that, whether you recognise that you are one of the world's leaders of identity politics.
No, I don't think
I'm one. You don't accept that?
I don't believe that.
You don't believe you are a champion for an identity group?
What would be the identity group?
White men.
No, I think that that's an appalling accusation. And I think if you go to my talks, for example, that there's no evidence that that's the case. And you certainly have no evidence that that's my readership. And even if it was the case that the predominant people that I'm talking to are men between the ages of 25 and 35. That doesn't make me an identity politician, and those people need to be talked to too.
Why does that not make you an identity politician? Those people
because I'm not inviting them.
I'm not arguing they shouldn't be talked to. I'm just wondering why you would say that you weren't an intellectual leader for that group of people and many others.
Because I'm not inviting them specifically to what I'm doing. That's just how it's turned out. And the part of the reason for that is because the YouTube viewership is 80% male across the board. That has nothing to do with me.
There's a women's bookshop called the Women's Bookshop in this city. I'm allowed in there. It's not an exclusive thing. You wouldn't want to argue that a women's bookshop calling itself that wasn't explicitly feminist, because of course it is.
But I don't call my book something that's specifically devoted to men, and the vast majority of my students throughout my academic career have been women. At least 80% of them. And certainly it's a very large proportion of women that are reading and buying the book. So this is just a trope that journalists use. Your audience is primarily angry young white men. It's like, okay, fine, I've talked to about 350,000 people in the last year, and there hasn't been one untoward incident of any sort by any single one of the people who've come to my talks. And that's 350,000 people. So where's the aggression?
Yeah, you see, what you've just done there, you took what I said and took it to an extreme. I didn't talk about angry, I just said white men. I accept that the angry side is a very small corner, but okay.
Come da porta picchita va bene, si tu la parla miezza americano, quando si fa l'amore sotto la luna, come da bene in capo di I love you, papà l'americano.